Parshat Nasso discusses the Birkat Kohanim. I heard this idea from Rav Bernstein. I believe it's in his 2012 shiur online. And he says as follows. On chapter 6, verse 23, we have the command, or Moses commanding Aaron to do the Birkas Kohanim, and it says as follows. Daber el Aaron v'lanav lemor, kod devarchu et bnei Yisrael amor lahem. Right? Speak to Aaron and his sons to say, so shall you bless the Bnei Yisrael, say to them as follows. And then we have the text, Yevarechecha, Yair, and Yisa. Now, what's interesting about this is, from the mitzvah of the Kohanim, it seems like there's an implied prohibition for a non-Kohen to bless the Jewish people. And when we see this, we need to ask, okay, well, hang on. Imagine there's a situation where, just like very recently with Shavuot, the Kohanim go up to Duchan. Now imagine there's Israel who's like, look, I'm going to go up with him. That looks amazing. I would like to join, and I also want to bless the Jewish people. Do you have anything to say about that? You might say, like, well, look, it says, Kot tevarchu bnei Yisrael amor lahem, right? This is clearly directed towards Aaron and his sons. But he might tell you, well, okay, fine, look, I know I'm not a Kohen, so maybe it's not a mitzvah, but okay, so it's eno mitzvah ve'osa, right? I'm not commanded to do it, but I'll do it. I want to do it anyway. What's the prohibition there? Is there any prohibition there? So it says the Gemara in Ketuvot, yes, it says, Zar shenasa kapav over ba'aseh. Right, a non-Kohen who raises his hands, that's just a way of referring to duchening, right, the Kohanim giving their bracha. As Zar shenas kapav, a non-Kohen who lifts his hands, that is to say, who blesses Birkas Kohanim, over be'aseh, he violates a positive commandment. And the way Rashi explains is, what's the positive commandment? What's the aseh here? So it says Rashi, it's kot tevarchu, right? From the fact that the pasuk says kot tevarchu, so shall you bless them, that is a commandment to the Kohanim, la'afuki, the rest of Israel, right? That's a commandment to a Kohen, and that excludes other members of the Jewish people. Only the Kohanim are allowed to do it, and no one else. That is the aseh. And that's okay? So that makes sense? Now we have our answer. We asked, and answered. Very good. There's only one problem. In the Gemara in Shabbat, on Kuf Yud Chet Amud Beit, right, on 118b, towards the bottom, we have a very interesting statement by Rabbi Yossi. So, V'amar Rabbi Yossi, Miyamai lo avarti al divrei chaverai, right? From the beginning of my days, I've never transgressed the words of my friends. If they tell me to do something, I'll do it. I hold them in such high regard. Yodeh ani be'atzmi she'eni kohen. I know about myself that I'm not a kohen. Im omrim li chaverai ala l'duchan ani ola. If my friends tell me to go up to the duchan, I'll go to the duchan. I'll go do the Birkas Kohanim. Now that is a problem, because we just saw the Gemara in Ketuvot that says that Izar Shenasa Kapav over Ba'aseh, that you're transgressing a positive commandment. And here we have Rabbi Yossi saying, well, you know what, if someone told me to go duchan, then I would do it. How can you do that? You're not a Kohen. Well, what's going on here? Now that's a problem. What makes this even more problematic is that Tosfot comments. He joins in on the fray. And what does he say? He says, says Tosfot, the Reed doesn't seem to understand, right? One of the Balei Tosfot doesn't understand if there's even an Isser here. He's saying, well, what's the problem? Good for him, let him go up. How could he say such a thing? Except maybe right? Maybe it's a bracha levatala, the fact that they're saying the bracha that the Kohanim say before they bless them. But as long as he's not saying that, then it seems like he's on good ground. But how could Tosfot say that? It's one thing for Rabbi Yossi to say such a thing, but for Tosfot to comment this, it's an open Gemara. You just look at Ketuvot and it says explicitly, Zar shenasa kapav over ba'aseh. How could the Re say such a thing? That I just don't see the problem. I don't see the issue here with Rabbi Yossi. Now, you can imagine the volume of answers that come to answer this question. There are very many. I don't know all of them or even most of them. What I do know is Rav Bernstein shares 4 answers to this. I'm not going to share all 4, but I'll share 2. So the first is a fairly straightforward resolution. Let's just say the Beit Chadash, he's a commentary on the Tur. The Tur was the son of the Rosh. He's one of the 3 great poskim among the Rishonim. It is what the Shulchan Aruch is based on. And actually, maybe the most famous aspect of the Tur is the Beit Yosef. That is to say, Rav Yosef Karo, who is the author of the Shulchan Aruch. He wrote potentially his most famous commentary on the Torah called the Beit Yosef. That's where his name actually comes from, the Beit Yosef, and that's that. The Bach is the other major commentary on the Torah, the Beit Chadash. So the Beit Chadash in the Torah mentions what the halachic components are of the Birkat Kohanim. What does it take? What do we do? So says the Torah, says the Beit Chadash, in order for a Kohen to fulfill the mitzvah of Birkat Kohanim, he needs to do certain things. And if someone does those things, but doesn't do it in the way that a Kohen does while doing his mitzvah of duchening, then he hasn't violated the transgression of a non-Kohen doing the Birkas Kohanim. What are the elements required? So, for example, 1, the Kohen needs to be standing. 2nd, it has to be b'kol ram, it has to be audible, and it has to be clear. The Kohen can't just whisper it, he has to say it so that we can hear him. 3, he needs to raise his hands. Nesiyat kapayim, right? The raising of the hands. So if all 3 of these elements aren't present, then the Kohen hasn't fulfilled his mitzvah. And on the flip side, if someone goes up to the duchen and does these things, or does not do all of these things, then he hasn't transgressed the mitzvah of a Kohen to duchen, right? Because at the end of the day, he hasn't fulfilled the mitzvah anyway, even if he wasn't a Kohen. Now that's a very smooth way of resolving our Gemara. Why? Because Rabbi Yossi is saying, like, look, if my friends asked me to go up to duchen, I would do it. Now what he means here is, I'll just say the bracha. I'm not saying that I would raise my hands and stand and say it audibly. I would just do the bare minimum. All I would do is say the bracha, but I wouldn't fulfill the full mitzvah. So that's one way of resolving this difficult Gemara, and of course the Tosfot. Now, there's another way, and that's the Meshech Chochmas. So what he says as follows, is when we think of duchening, right, of the Birkas Kohanim, we think that is specifically a mitzvah on the Kohen, and only on the Kohen. But really, there are some Mefarshim, there are some commentators who say not that way. They say no, there are 2 mitzvahs here. There's the mitzvah on the Kohen, there's also a mitzvah on Bnei Israel, on the Jewish people. There's a mitzvah for us to accept, to receive the bracha. Now, how do we see this? Because the pasuk says, Kotevarchu, so shall you bless them. Now, from this, they understand, Kotevarchu means that we should push them. We should push the Kohanim to give us a bracha. We want to accept the bracha. We need to motivate them and tell them to give us the blessings so that we can fulfill our mitzvah. Now, there are halachic ramifications to this, because that is why a Kohen who has a deformity on his hand, right, is not allowed to duchen, because maybe people become distracted if they see his hands. They won't be able to focus on the bracha, and they won't be able to fulfill their mitzvah. And in such a case, we actually tell the Kohen not to go up. Now, of course, there are exceptions for this. Hey, you could just easily put it under his talit, which most people do anyway, assuming they're even looking at the Kohanim. If people are used to the deformity, of course, that won't distract them, so that's okay. But the point is, the Jewish people have a positive mitzvah to fulfill here. And this goes so far that in Chutz La'aretz, at least for Bnei Ashkenaz, right, according to the Ramah, that since they don't duchen every day, they only do it on Yamim Tovim, so as a result, they don't duchen. And as a result, Rav Moshe Sternbach, right, a gadol in Harnof, he says that because... Sorry, hang on. So, one of the applications of the fact that it's a mitzvah for the Jewish people to accept the bracha is that actually you're supposed, when the Kohanim are saying a bracha, and if you pay careful attention, depending on the way your shul is laid out, the people who are at the front, who are on the same line as the Kohanim, will actually step back so that they're actually in front of the Kohanim, not directly in front of them, but at least they're being faced by the Kohanim. Because if you're not being faced by the Kohanim, you're not receiving the bracha, in which case you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of Birkat Kohanim, and you're forfeiting the bracha. So if that's true, back in the day, not everyone was able to get into the city to hear the bracha when they did it every single day. There's some people who work in the fields, and they couldn't come to shul every single day. So as a result, they're called anus, and they do not forfeit the bracha, even though they're not maybe technically in front of the Kohanim who are giving the bracha. So it says Rav Moshe Sternbach, and here we go, that because the Bnei Eretz Yisrael, at least Bnei Ashkenaz, they don't duchen every day, they only do it on Yamim Tovim, Rav Sternbach tells or advises the Kohanim in Eretz Yisrael to have their brothers and sisters in Chutz La'aretz in mind when they give the Birkas Kohanim in Israel, because in Israel, I'm pretty sure everybody duchens every single day. So as a result, he advises those Kohanim to have not only themselves in mind and the Kehillah, but also to push out that bracha for everyone in Chutz La'aretz, because we're anus, right? Because we can't do it, at least Bnei Ashkenaz. Okay? So says Meshech Chochmah, this is the prohibition with a non-Kohen who ascends to Duchen. He has therefore forfeited the bracha. Because by Rabbi Yossi going up to Duchen, he is no longer in front of the Kohanim. If he's not in front of the Kohanim, then he isn't getting the bracha. That's the Isur Aseh, right? The Aseh is to accept the bracha, to receive the bracha, but Rabbi Yossi can't do that if he's up there with them. But Rabbi Yossi says, he held the words of his friends so dearly, and they were so chashuv to him, that if they asked him to go up, he would go up. But it's Asur, he has to receive the bracha. No. For Rabbi Yossi, it's anus, because he holds his friends in such high regard that if they're asking him to do him, then he just doesn't have a choice. He has to go up. That's the anus, and that's why he isn't being over the asa here. We'll leave it there. Shabbat shalom.